Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor and I help people navigate through their awakening process by sharing my own experience with it. And I didn't really quite know what to talk about today, so I decided to bring back one of my older style formats, which is a Q A video. So I'm just gonna kind of randomly go through some questions I'm getting here and just answer them for you guys. And in the event I do another one, if you guys have any questions yourself, go ahead and leave them in the comment section. And if this goes well and you guys enjoy it, maybe I'll make another one next week, okay? So this first one is from Job June something or other. It says, Victor, okay, so after we go through the ascension, then what? What will these ascension symptoms lead to? What is the point of the ascension symptoms? And what are we ascending into? What is this ascended state? So, that's a fair question, wouldn't you say? A lot of times when you start to awaken, you find yourself in this insanity and you can't help. It begs the question, what's the point of this? This suffering and chaos and upheaval in my life, in my body, in my mind, everything, it's got to lead to something, right? Well, I suspect that person in particular is probably very new because, as a lot of you guys know, you get glimpses of where you're heading. It's not something that I can confine and say, this is what's going to happen after such and such time period. It's bigger than that. Fortunately, it's bigger than that. If I could do that, then it wouldn't be all that grand. It's so big that all we can really get and fathom and compute are these glimpses where we actually get to act from and experience the connectedness that we've acquired. As we continue to purge these issues, we find that level of groundedness and connectedness and just almost like a bliss, you could say, a subtle bliss. It grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And that's my experience, is that those glimpses start to last longer and become richer and are felt more deeply. And as this connection increases, a lot of the issues that we struggle with tend to become no-brainers and easy to let go of. For example, a lot of people communicate to me they have addictions, and we only put energy and behavior and act out addictions because we feel we get something out of it. We feel so miserable and unhappy right now that even though this addictive behavior carries with it these like consequences that we don't like, it's still the logical choice because we feel so in such pain right now. But eventually, as I mentioned, this connection becomes so deep, so profound, and lasts longer and longer and longer that as you look at these familiar habits and patterns of, like, say, addiction, it's more of an obvious choice that I don't want to do that, even though it'll give me a little temporary little buzz, because I feel so good now. So what's going to happen when I don't know any of that, and I would recommend not putting too much stock into someone who claims to know those answers exactly. But what I can say from my experience is that it becomes certainly worth your while. This next one is in reference to one of my more recently and sort of popular videos that talks about the meaning of 1111. You guys see I put it in the beginning of my videos and at the end. It's a common synchronicity that people see when they're starting to wake up, essentially. And someone just put, and what about 33 or 33? This is Bina Berry. What about 33? So that I'm answering not only what about 33, but a lot of people have said, what about this? I see this. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 12, 12. I don't see 11, 11. But I see the number 14 75 times a day. Essentially, in my opinion, aside from the few people who feel really guided to research like numerology, essentially, to see what those numbers represent, for the most part, your higher self, your soul, your non-physical guidance system that is becoming more of a noticeable trait or aspect of you, will use anything. So this person asking about 33, that's the same. You could use that That's the same as me seeing 11:11 or you seeing 12:12. It's all the same thing. It's just synchronicity patterns that represent something. It depends on what does that number mean to you. What does 33 make you think of and feel when you see it? That's the answer. Okay, this username RumpSug says, need help. I have trapped energy or something in my head. It feels like it's bouncing around constantly every day. I had that a lot too, man. That for me, it was due to having an excessive amount of Kundalini type energy in my body and nowhere to go really. It just gets stuck because your physical body is not yet purified enough, as well as other aspects of your consciousness are still cluttered with like ego baggage, you could say, which you all have to a degree. And that is preventing this energy from flowing naturally. And as a result, it can feel stuck at times. It's a transient symptom, and I find it's the best thing to do is to accept it, because worrying about it only intensifies it and draws more energy into that area that you're concerned about. I used to have a lot of pressure in my head, and I would wake up and I'd think about, oh wow, the pressure's there. Why is it here? What does it mean? What does it represent? How do I get rid of it? Geez, this is so frustrating. All this energy going to this growing blob of pressure in my head because I'm dwelling on it. The best thing I learned to do is just to do your best to ignore it and trust that this energy knows what it wants to do and will eventually clear itself out, and all that physical noise of this energy will settle down tremendously, and it'll be all worth it. The aftermath of this energy having its way with you will be more than worth the temporary annoyance of it just being blocked up there. This question is from the Wolf Gamer. It said, I recently had a past life regression, and in that, the love of my life was murdered, and after that, I feel empty and sad. This is affecting my work and the dream I'm trying to pursue. I would appreciate some tips on how to deal with the situation. So, I'll say two things. One of them is the whole idea of having a past life regression is to draw a connection from an experience you had that perhaps impacted you in a way where you've held on to some degree and are continuing to hold on even in this life. But just in seeing it, that this is really the result of this other lifetime that has nothing to do with here, it makes no sense to keep holding on. You can finally let it go. That was the result I had. I had a past life regression too, and I went back in like maybe a half a dozen lives, and that was what happened every time. And seeing, again, the correlation, it was more automatic to me to just let it go. On the same token, a lot of my past lives, the things I happened to go back into were very dark, where on one of them my whole family was like killed in a car accident, and I walked up to it, and it is very sad. That comes with the territory. If you want to look back into the past lives, well, you might find some shit you don't want to uncover, really. However, I chose to use that as a positive experience because I connected it to the fact that I was always walking around on edge with almost a paranoia that at any moment something horrible could happen to my family. I had that energy about me. But in seeing that, wow, it's because of this past life I was having that, it caused a tremendous just releasing of the burden. I'll also say this. After doing this past life regression, I had a therapist take me to it. I realized how easy it was to do. So I just started doing it on my own, going into past lives at random. There was one time I sat at my table drinking coffee. My kids were like in the other room playing, and I had my head down like this. And I went into like 3 different lives just for the hell of it, because I was bored. And me and my wife both did this, and we started to kind of come to that conclusion, like find that, wow, a lot of times going back in and re-seeing or experiencing horrific experiences, it doesn't really serve me, and it's incredibly sad and depressing and painful, so I sort of stopped doing it. I'll use it now as a tool if I feel the need, it would be appropriate, but just to do it for the sake of doing it, yeah. A lot of our past lives, we experience a tremendous amount of pain. A lot of that pain is what we will go into as we go into these past lives, because that might be valuable to us. But there comes a point where it's not relevant for us in this life to know every little thing that ever happened to us as a soul. It'd be too much. That's why we forget so much as we come here, because it'd be too much. So how do you deal with it? You accept it. You accept that it happened, and that was in the past life. And so what? Why carry that around now? Why would something that happened to you in a past life affect your work now? Ask yourself that. That's the question you should ask. This next one is going to be sort of a summary of the theme or whatever to a lot of questions I get. I have a lot of people who ask me about how their awakening is going to affect their relationship. A lot of times people find they're married or have a significant other of whatever, of some sort, and they understand that their awakening is going to cause them to start growing and changing very rapidly in drastic ways. And sometimes they have concern that, well, I love this person, I want them to be with me, and they just wonder how it's going to play out, what's going to happen. Can couples awaken together? Am I going to inevitably, because I'm starting to grow fast, separate? How is it going to go down? There's no one answer to that, and it's certainly not something I could ever predict. But what I can say to give you guys some hope is that what I've learned is that if it's someone you really love and you truly are meant to be, just going into just what I've read about physics, the higher frequency will begin to entrain the lower frequency to it. Meaning if you're a higher vibration person, you keep growing, and you keep living in the house or staying around someone else of perhaps a lower frequency, they're going to match you rather than you matching them. So you might spark them. Your energy is going to be sort of infectious to them and cause them to sort of rise with you, essentially. Or it could be the opposite. It could be that it's time to go and you separate. But that will be what you want. It won't be like I have to separate from this person, damn this awakening, and why is this so sad if we're being ripped out of each other's arms. It'll be more like you'll start to see them differently, and you won't want to be with them for whatever reason. Not that they're a bad person. You'll just see that it's not compatible, and you will want to go the other way. It won't be like you have to begrudgingly because of this awakening. The awakening will only take you to the closest possible variation of your dream life, and on all levels, including your relationships. So there really is nothing to worry about at all. But back to what I was saying, that was the experience of my wife. And I'm going to make another video about this and actually bring her in, because I awakened my Kundalini prior to her awakening. And it was more like she was worried about me. She was like, wow, Victor's pretty freaking wacko now. He's going through all these weird things I don't understand. And she was concerned, is Victor okay? Is he nuts? But again, we're at least from my perception now, we're meant to be together. We're very much in love. And I sort of sparked her awakening. And now, pretty much she caught right up. And we've been on the same wavelength ever since for many, many, many years now. So there's no how it's going to have to go. It's all going to be individual. And essentially, because, like I said, you're going to be led to only greater, expansive versions of your ideal life, that there really is nothing to worry about. Okay, this is from Zachary Spencer. He says, I got one for you. All these way showers say to go inside yourself for the answers and confirmations, and you'll just know it will resonate with you. But I can't seem to figure it out. I've tried meditation, crystals, to downright strange things to find these answers. Anyway, I just think it would make a great video. Thank you, such and such. So, this is another one of those situations where I will make a separate video, because there's a lot of people who hear people say things, and then because they have a certain definition of what they're talking about, they feel like they suck because they can't do it. And going within, that's like a That's a metaphor. There's no literal practice of that I can convey to you. It's more just about trusting your intuition, essentially. And here's like the caveat with that. It's not as easy. It doesn't always work that way. Generally, you're going to always find, in a sense, I won't say it that way. Like, we're all doing our best to get good at what you're struggling with. Sometimes if I have an issue and I'm sort of ready to be uncovered and I go within, meaning what I do there, this is what I do. I pose a question to myself and I have like a dialogue with myself. I'll say like, and this last night I had this like energy coming up associated with, we just like closed on our house and it's brought up this issue of like control. And it's just one of those physical, like, there's an issue that's got to be resolved, but I don't understand it yet. I went within. I said, what does this energy represent, Victor? And then I got like when I got an answer, it was like, it's almost like the first thing you think. Like, without thinking and conjuring too much, whatever is just the most instantaneous sort of natural response, that tends to be oftentimes what it is. And you're probably doing it, you're probably questioning it. Like, well, that didn't come from somewhere deep within, that was just in my head. It's kind of the same thing, man. But when you learn to kind of trust that you can just answer questions, then you'll start to get answers more frequently. But again, there are some times where you don't get anything because it's not time for you to resolve that thing. So you might go within and get nothing. And then you think, wow, I suck at going within. This is for the bird. It doesn't do anything. But it doesn't mean the technique itself is flawed. It just means that it's not ideal for you to just have the answer to that particular question right now. Let your life unfold more, and it will come when it's supposed to come, and it'll come at a time that is actually perfect for you. But generally, you can improve at this skill of going within. And again, for me, it's just a simple thing. I chose to write it down this time in like a notebook. I just read a book that talked about this essential technique where you like write it out. So I just tried that. I wrote out, where does this energy come from? And when I wrote out, it was something like, you've inherited your father's relationship and fears about financial security or something like that. And that led me to another question. What is this relationship that I can, like more specific? One question will often lead to an answer. It'll be a partial answer, and then you can just keep asking question after question after question until you have like a pretty good idea of what your overall answer is for whatever you're trying to find. I hope that, I'm gonna watch this. That sounded way too confusing. I'm not gonna post that. I hope that helped you though, man. But relax your expectations of how you should be going within. That's just a phrase people say, okay? I'm sure you're already doing it, okay? Just try what I said. Just sit down, take 2 deep breaths, not 100, just 2. And whatever you want to know, try to make it relevant to your life, not just what should I play in the lottery or something, like, you know, pertains to your own life, what's actually current for you. Ask and see what happens.